Peace, 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 everybody. Peace, everybody. We'll start this and then we're gonna get into it, man. We're gonna get into deal.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. Here.
All right. Peace, 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 peace and Black African power. Welcome back to Kofi Piesie TV. I am Ren-E Kofi Piesie. That is, my name is Kofi Piesie. I want to say ETM Hotep, Dua Aku, Dua Netcha, Fatmu Alafiye, Fatmu Riri, Fatmu Iwa Pele, Majuba Iba Ie Gungun, Majuba Iba Ie Gungun, Majuba Iba Ie Lakba, Majuba Iba Ie Lakba, E Gungun Kiki, E Gungun. I always have to give honor and praise to the ancestors, because without the ancestors, we wouldn't be here. We are our ancestors. I also want to stand honor and praises to the true and living elders out there according to African traditions and from an African worldview and from an African perspective. We're gonna have I got a great bill. We're gonna have a great bill today. First I got Brother Sutek Akandi Uyani Olawa on the panel, and as well as my brother Vasa Nicolo Gull on the panel. So before we get started with the presentation and the bill, y'all brothers got anything?
Yeah, man. Share Lafayette, peace to the family, peace to the chat, peace to those who will see this in the archives. Make sure y'all come in to the show. Please like and share the show for us, family. We don't say this for our own good. But yeah, appreciate y'all, man, for coming to rock out with us. Get your pad and your pen and let's get it in.
Peace, everyone. I'm driving at the moment, so I can't see the chat, but peace to everyone in the audience, both present and in the future. And peace to my brothers on the panel. Hey, Kofi, are you on mute, or am I the only one that can't hear?
That's me. I'm my bad. I'm on. Y'all muted out when y'all got to talking. But yeah, before I share my screen, I'm gonna throw this up here real quick. Brother Mathis, he made this comment before the show got started. About 40 minutes before the show got started, he came in the chat. Well, peace to everybody. Like I said, peace to everybody in the chat. Peace to those that may be just listening. Peace to those that may come back and view this in the archives. Piece of those are on Facebook because we're streaming from Facebook and from our YouTube channel, Kofi Piesie TV. So please like, comment, and subscribe. But Brother Matthew says, did carving up Africa create many problems? Yes, it has divided us up into groups. They knew and still knew if we unite as one people, one African people, the whites rule will cease to exist. Okay. That's what Brother Mathis put up there, man. We're gonna get into it. I agree with you. I agree with you wholehearted. So let's see like some of the things that went on and the effects of carving up Africa or colonialism or imperialism in general. share my screen. And again, like I said, please share the show with those that you think that may be interested in this, this information. Let me know on my screen sharing. Is my screen sharing, y'all?
Nah, not yet.
I'm driving.
Okay.
I see you.
It wasn't sharing. It wasn't sharing. I ain't hit the share button. All right, let me know when y'all see it on that.
I see that Mississippi griot. That's what I see.
Yeah, you good now.
Okay. All right. Anybody else pop in? I just heard that little bubble. I can't see anything now when I'm
Nah, just us.
Okay. All right. Again, today's presentation is called "Did Carving Up Africa Create Many Problems?" Put a name on it. So we're gonna put a name on it, and we're gonna see the European put a name on it. You know, they put a name on everything that they did. Let's go to the next slide. All right. I always have to put a disclaimer out here before I get started. My disclaimer is I am not a teacher, but merely a student sharing information. And that information provided is for the educational purpose only. And if you are in doubt, do the research and have it verified by someone qualified. I reserve the right to change of the focus of this presentation, to shut down, or sell, or exchange the terms are used by my own discretion. All trademark, design rights, copyrights, registers, names, mottos, logos, avatars, or signals and marks used or cited by this website are the property of their respective owners. I reserve the right to add information as it comes available, or adapt, changes, improve information as it comes available in the future. Input wanted changes, additions, deletions, or encourage. Again, like I say, I always have to put a disclaimer out there before I get started. I'm one to confess that I do not know everything, and I will humbly admit if I make a mistake, and I always go back and correct and update the information if I am in error. As I learn, we all learn is the phrase over here on Kofi Piesie TV, Kofi Piesie Research Team, and Mossi Word Clan stands by this phrase. It is a powerful phrase. And if you don't have the as I learn, we all learn, sharing information with others book by myself, please go to Kofi Piesie TV. Go to www.kofipiesietv.com and purchase the book. Again, peace to everybody who's in the chat. Peace to those that just tuning in. Peace to my wife that's in the chat. Hey, baby. We must not let our ancestors down. There's another phrase that we live by over here and we stand by over here. And I know our ancestors are smiling on us because we have been doing some extraordinary things in this pandemic. All right. Now, this presentation, well, everybody knows that we got a book discussion, a book club, so to say, that we've been doing for the past 8 months. So this presentation will help those who will be tuned in today to our book discussion show, the show that we do every Sunday. We've been discussing our late great ancestor Chancellor Wisdom's publication, Destruction of Black Civilization. Great issues of race from the BC to 200 AD. 8 weeks now, which means we are now on chapter 8, titled Resurrection and the Life Case Studies by the States. So the presentation, this presentation is inspired by chapter 18 in the Destruction of Black Civilization. Like I said, we've been doing the book discussion on the great ancestor Chancellor Williams publication for the past 8 weeks. And we'll be dealing with chapter 8. And on the first page of chapter 8, it talks about the naming, the Europeans and the Arabs naming Africa. So, and just going on through certain texts within the publications that expired this. Now, Africa is now plagued by a lot of problems such as poverty, violence, civil war, and slavery. There are other problems that our mother country has, but these are some of the ones that I threw up here in particular: poverty, violence, civil war, and slavery. How did some of these things come about, and were there something set in play that caused many problems in Mother Africa? This is a question. Yes, imperialism, colonialism, invasions, bad policies set in place, and slavery. These are some of the things. These are not all of the things, but these are some of the things that we're going to be dealing with: imperialism, colonialism, invasions, bad policies set by our own brothers and sisters, our continental brothers and sisters, and slavery. All right, colonization in Africa, the Berlin Conference. We're going to talk about the Berlin Conference in a minute, but we'll just deal with it briefly, and then we're going to get into it. But on the right here, you have a map. This is a map before 1884, and you can see before the Berlin Conference, Africans were split up into different sections consisting of multiple native groups. The land was divided by district physical characteristics. These physical characteristics include mountain ranges in Africa, rivers, and trade routes that have formed. There were hundreds or different languages between these native tribes. Most of them had their own religion, traditions, but a lot of the tribes learned new beliefs such as Muslims and Christianity. There were early Europeans explorations to Africa, but a lot of times these explorers would become sick along the way and die. This discouraged exploration into Africa for a long time because Europeans had never experienced the living conditions there. The concept of nation states in Africa is only a bit over a century old, arriving after the 1884 Berlin Conference, the substantial scramble for Africa by European superpowers of the time. It is therefore not surprising that the names of most countries are remnant of the colonial legacy. So before we talk about the carving up of Africa and who these superpowers were and why they did what they did and why this meeting took place and where this meeting took place and these nation states was formed after this so-called conference within those 3 months of those individuals meeting. But let's talk about the names. We talk about, we say we from Ghana, we say we from Sierra Leone, we may say we're from Burkina Faso, all these different names of these countries that we say that we send or our roots are from. Let's talk about some of the names. Now, here is a map of the country. This is actually the map after 1884 when these individuals began to carve up Africa. But these are some of the names, where all of the names of these 53, 54 countries in Africa, the Ivory Coast, Ghana, Liberia, et cetera, et cetera. All right, Cameroon. Cameroon is a country that has a complicated legacy in the first having been colonized by the Germans, then later petitions by the French, and the British was actually named by the Portuguese explorers in the 15th century. Coming across Wora River of the Cameroon, largest river, he renamed it Rio dos Cambres, shrimp of river, for the abundance of shrimp in it. The name stuck and evolved to become the country name. So this place, like I said before, we get into who these individuals are, which, by us talking about who named some of these countries, and we'll get into why these people invaded and colonized these countries in a minutes. And I'm not going to go through a whole list of 54 names, but Cameroon was named by the Portuguese. And again, and it comes from them arriving at a river, and this river was abundant with shrimp, which was called Rio dos Cambres, and then it stuck, and that place became Cameroon. So Cameroon was named after the Portuguese. So that wasn't the original name of that piece, that geographical location. All right, the 15th century Portuguese explorer Pedro de Centro would find his way further west, where either the mountains they look like a lion's teeth, or the impression roar of thunderstorms would lead him to name the place Sierra Leone, Lion's Mountain. In time, the name would change to Sierra Leone. So this other geographical location was named by a Portuguese, a Portuguese explorer again, named Pedro de Sandra. Centuries later, another mountain would yield countries' names in the East Africa. Um, when the British came upon an imposing snow-capping mountain that the Kikuyu people call Kiriyaga, where God dwells. As the struggle to pronounce, and I'm doing it too, Kiriyaga, they called it Mount Kenya. The country would be named after this mountain, which will become Kenya. So British had a part in naming Kenya. Marco Polo, the 13th century Italian explorer, never visited Madagascar, but in believed to the responsibility for mistaking it for the Mogadishu and included it in the memoirs. In his memoirs, this is the first written reference of Madagascar, thus the corrupted Italian transliterations of Madagascar. Hold on, I'm trying to get that right. Gashu, I'm turning it up. Madagascar eventually gave the world's second largest island its name. The name Nigeria was named from the Niger River running through the country. This name was coined on January 8, 1897 by the British journalist Flora Shawn, who later married Lord Lugar, a British colonial administrator. And this is just a news clipping over here from the side that I just clipped out real quick and put on the side of Flora, who gives the name to Nigeria. You know, and I know some of us think that these names of these countries was named by the continental Africans on the continent. In Mozambique, it would be an Arab sheikh whose name would rename with the country. Musa bin Beku ruled in the area at the time when the Portuguese arrived, and the Portuguese would call this territory Mozambique. Sudan would get its name from the Arab phrase Belal al Sudan, the land of the blacks. So the Portuguese named this place Mozambique after Musa bin Makbing ruled in that area at one particular time. Gabon would also be named based on the shapes of places. The country's first European visitors were Portuguese traders who arrived in the 15th centuries and named Gabon, based upon the shapes of the Como River. A star were the first explorer. They looked to them like a coat with a sleeves at the hood. So the Portuguese had a hand in naming Cabal as well. The Republic of Upper Volta was named by the French colonial and renamed Burkina Faso, the land of the incorruptible people, by Thomas Sankara. We talked about this last week. I did a presentation on this brother, and y'all hear me start mentioning his name more and posting more stuff about his story. But go back and check out that presentation I did called I Am Thomas Sankara, and why I say I am Thomas Sankara, and why you could be Thomas Sankara if you do some of the things that this brother did, and this brother was actually for his people. But that place that is called Burkina Faso was called by the French, or named by the French, the Republican of the Volta. That was the name that the French call it. And when Thomas Sankara became president in 1983, and then in 1984, celebrating his first year, he changed the name to Burkina Faso, the land of the incorruptible one, because he was one that could not be corruptible by the French government. Prior to 1884, and that's just a few of the names. I just wanted to give y'all a few of the names of the countries who named those countries. I wasn't going to name all of them, just going to name a few of them. but we know a few others in that case, like the renaming. We know Ghana was named Ghana at one point, and then it was changed to the Gold Coast by the British. We also know that oh man, there was another place too that reclaimed their name after their independence, and their name was escaping me. But anyway, prior to 1884, meetings in Germany, the Europeans only controlled. Prior to 1884, meetings in Germany, the Europeans only controlled a few colonies, only the coastline prior to Berlin Conference. So African was mostly a free of colonialization, and this is true. You know, there was not as many foreigners in those particular places. Colonization did not truly exist, so most of those places were free of colonialism. Africa consists of 53 largest countries. Most of them speak English, French, and Portuguese as an official language. And we can understand that. We know that if we go to certain parts, if we go to Sierra Leone, if we, let's say, if we go to, let's say, Sierra Leone or Liberia, we know that they're going to speak the national language is going to be English. We know if we go to Senegal and Gambia, we know that there is going to be the national language is going to be French. So you see a lot of our brothers and sisters speaking French over there, and you got certain areas speak Portuguese in certain areas over there. White man's burden. Before we get into the Berlin countries, you know, let's talk about white man's burden. You know, what is white man's burden? What is white man's burden? The white man believed that his responsibility to civilize and control less advanced people of the world, and that's the work that they think they are doing. You know, this is why you see them sticking their toe in every area of the world and claiming it because of this white man's burden. They just feel like they're so superior. So they have, and everybody else is uncivilized. So they have to come and civilize these people. Europeans really believed they had a mission to civilize the world. They began to create plans to dominate places they believed was naturally inferior, and this belief for strong desires for wealth, resources, power led Europeans to seek out new colonies in place like Asia and Africa. Industrialization causing Europeans to search for more raw material to supply the factories that started sprouting up all over Europe. Also, by 1880, European technology had increased greatly. Innovations in transportation, healthcare, and military technology allow to dominate the world. Okay, new modes of transportation like railroad steams, which made transportation faster and safer than ever before. Better medicines, which allow Europeans to explore the tropical regions of the world without fear of contracting deadly diseases. The state of art weapons gave European armies an advantage over less sophisticated militaries of other nations. Now, Europeans did not want to go through troubles or the expense of fighting each other over the land they desire in Africa. The European power decided to have civilized meetings to divide the land they intended to conquer in 1884, and this meant was convened in Berlin, Germany. So we know that the conference took place in November, and it lasted up into January. It lasted 3 months. We know that these powers that we're going to talk about, these European powers, so to say, you know, had an interest in Africa. And again, the industrialization or the industrial revolution started to advance. So these individuals needed resources. They needed resources. So that their interest was in Africa because Africa, again, sustains most of the natural resources. The Berlin Conference. Hold on, did I read? Okay, yeah, I did. The Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference of 1884 through 1885 marked the climax of the European competition for territory in Africa, a process is commonly known as a scramble for Africa. During the 1870s and the early 1880s, European nations such as Great Britain, France, Germany began looking to Africa for natural resources for their growing industrial sector, as well as a potential market for the goods for their territory, which I laid out a while ago on the slide. Their industrial revolution started to take off, so they started to need natural resources. So they started to need certain things, right? So industrial sectors were potentially marked for the goods their factories produced. As a result, these governments sought to safeguard their commercial interests in Africa and began sending scouts to the continent to secure treaties from indigenous people or their supposed representatives. Similar, Belgium King Leopold II, who aspired to increase his personal wealth by acquiring African territory, hired agents to lay claims to a vast tract of land in Central Africa, where it all started at with him. To protect Germany's commercial interests, Germany Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, who was otherwise uninterested in Africa, felt compelled to stake claims in African land. Inevitable, the scramble for territory led to the conflict among European powers, particularly between the British and the French in West Africa, Egypt, the Portuguese, the British, East Africa, and the French and King Leopold in Central Africa. Rivals between Great Britain and France led Bismarck to intervene. In late 1884, he called a meeting of the European powers in Berlin. So all of them were trying to stake claims in these particular geographical locations in North, East, South, Central Africa for the natural resources that may have something to do with their industrial companies that they have. So they began to sit down, and you know what happened after they began to sit down. Portuguese of the Berlin, the purpose of the Berlin Conference. In 1884, at the request of the Portugal's German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck called together the major Western powers of the world to negotiate questions and end confusion over the control of Africa. Bismarck appreciated the opportunity to expand Germany's spheres of influence over Africa and desired to force Germany rivals to struggle with one another territories. At the time of the conference, 80% of Africans remained under traditional and local control. What ultimately resulted was a hodgepodge of geometric boundaries that divided Africa into 50 irregular countries. This new map of the continent was superimposed over the 1,000 indigenous cultures and regions of Africa. The new countries lacked rhyme and reasons and divided cohorts, groups of people, and merged together, dispersing groups who really did not get along. And again, we don't sensationalize anything over here on Kofi Piesie Research Team channel, Kofi Piesie TV, or Mossi Warrior Clan channel. We don't sensationalize. So so there were some feuds that was going on. And again, we all fight with one another, even when we talk about slavery, which is another thing. It is a totally different thing than I'll just say a prisoner of war. People did become prisoners of war. We did have people who were prisoners of war. Even when we went to war, if you study the war tactics in the beginning, there was no bloodshed. But we talked about that. I'm not going to get into it, but we talked about that, I think, last week on chapter 7, dealing with Chancellor Williams' great publication, Destruction of Black Civilization. Now, this is after they carved up Africa for themselves and pushed, and made these boundaries for themselves and, push these groups into one another, so to say, like, let's just say, like Nigeria. I think at one particular time, and I could be mistaken, I think that the people in Nigeria was all one people, and then after this, the Igbo people, you get the Yoruba. You got so many, you got tons of other different ethnic groups. Tons of different ethnic groups that comes out of Africa. A lot of these people was one tribal group at one particular time until this Berlin began to carve up and create these boundaries for themselves. All right. When we know, like I said, the natural resources. Again, I'll say this, and for people that may not understand that Africa is the second biggest continent, right? Right. So, and Africa sustains the whole world. I'll say that again. Africa sustains the whole world. Why do you say that? I'm saying that because it has the most natural resources. It has the most natural resources. So this is why you see them steadily in Africa to this day. You got all the Europeans countries who have, like I said, what we're getting into, have carved it up for themselves and created, generational wealth and power behind the natural resources that's in the ground of Africa. You have the Chinaman that's over there now. So everybody knows the worth of Mother Africa, but the African American or the African that's in the South America or the African in the Caribbean. You know what I'm saying? And we understand that and we're going to talk about that. And I don't know if we're going to talk about it here or we talk about it when we do the book discussion. You know what I'm saying? Because I propose a question in the book discussion because we talk about some of the strategies and some of the things that took place that caused the many, many problems in Africa that I laid out in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? Dealing with civil war, poverty, lack of education, and so forth. But these are some of the natural resources here. You got oil production, and this is another reason why our country, the United States, stays over there, and what we call the Middle East over there. You know what I'm saying? In certain parts of Africa, because they raping it for the natural resources. They want the oil and the gas. So, they're always perpetuating certain things, and we're always letting our children enlist and enroll into their military, which we're going to talk about all these things, man, on the book discussion at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time this afternoon. But oil production, gas production, diamonds, uranium, copper, magnesium, iron core, gold, and so forth. These are some of the these are not all. There's so many natural resources, you know what I'm saying, that Africa sustains. And I talk about this on a presentation, and I can't remember the presentation that I did. And it might be, what is the first thing that pop up in your mind when you think about Africa? And I did that presentation because most of the African Americans, or most of the people that I deal with in Mississippi, went through, their first education, like Chancellor Williams said. The black person, the black man, the black woman gets two education. The first one is given to them, and the second, which is given to themselves. And the people that I have, that I conversate with, they have not given they hadn't got their second education yet. So they feed into the propaganda from the movies, the news media outlets, and even the educational system, and even in the churches, even in the mosques and the synagogues here. You know what I'm saying? There's information that's being perpetuated about how Africans are inferior, or that land mass is a cesspool, and et cetera, et cetera. But again, they try to keep you from out of there. But if it's such a bad place, why are these so-called European powers, these Asian powers, these Chinamen, Japanese, or understand that this place sustains the whole world? It has the most natural resources, and these resources can benefit them, you know what I'm saying, in a positive and a powerful manner. So these are some of the natural resources, but I give you tons of natural resources, and I even give you each country and what natural resources that it has, and why these particular people are in pursuit of these natural resources. And I think that, again, that presentation is called, what is the first thing that pop up when you think about Africa? All right, okay. One of the problems of meaning that the effects that affected Mother Africa. So let's talk about some of these other effects, during the imperialism, colonialism, the carving up of Africa, right? These invasions of these foreigners, right? And one of the problems, and I'm gonna just talk about one of the problems, and I'll talk about the other problems tonight. But one of the problems, let's talk about, and I had up there as a bullet point, I talked about civil wars, right? And we see certain things that go on with these African militias, and these African militias are fighting other African countries, or even how Africans began to help the European powers to sell, do certain things, which we'll talk about that tonight too, because that comes to education. Because I'm gonna pose a question: are we still doing the same thing today? But I'll pose that later on. But let's just talk about the civil wars, or the warring between each other, right? So in South Africa, institutional racial segregations to separate Africans from white Europeans who were moving, and some colonial powers found it very easy to control the Africans by taking advantage of the old tribal rivals among them. And again, remember, when the Berlin Conference took place in November, might have been November the 14th. I stand corrected if it's not. It was in November, but I think it was November the 14th, right? And it lasted 3 months. It lasted to January. So once they came up with an agreement and came up and redid the map and set these boundaries of, okay, this is where we're gonna stake our claim at. This is where we're gonna stake our claim at, and they began to set these borders up. They began to set these borders up, and again, mind you, that during the Berlin Conference, right? You had all these different powers, right? You had the French, you had Germany, you had Portuguese, you had British, you had the United States. You had the United States. Yes, the United States was also a part of this conference that took place, right? And when they set these boundaries up, right, to stake claims so they can rape it for the natural resources, there were no African representative there, right? There was no African representative there doing that conference. So again, when they set these boundaries, they began to push people that was already rivaling with each other, may had disagreements amongst each other, and they began to push these people into one Pacific boundary, because they began to expand, or shorten these different boundaries and create these different boundaries, would begin to push these people in. And again, some of these people were one people and began to become two people because of these different boundaries that was set in place, right? So exploiting these tribal feuds made it easier for small numbers. And listen, it said exploiting the tribal feuds made it easier for small numbers of Europeans to dominate millions of Africans. I'm gonna read that again, because you had, people will say that a lot too. Man, you had when you look and you start to study certain things, you had more Africans in a specific geographical location than these Europeans. How they didn't overcome these Europeans. And and one of it is exploiting the tribal feuds made it easy for small number Europeans to dominate million Africans. You know what I'm saying? Because now the focus is not on the European and what they come in there to do. The focus is now fighting amongst your brothers and your sisters. Examples of dividing and conquer. And this is exactly what they did. They did divide and conquer. We saw the Rwanda history, and when we're going to talk about the Hutus and the Tutsis real quick, right? So we see in Rwanda, this is this example. I'm giving you an example of divide and conquer, because I'm talking about divide and conquer when these boundaries were set, and then they began to pin each these rival tribes, or boost it up, or even do certain things to get another tribe to fight against another tribe, to take their eyes off of what they was actually doing, right? And fight amongst one another, right? So this is an example. We see Rwanda history of how the European used and divide and conquer in Rwanda about the Tutsis and the Hutus. The Hutus was farmers and the Tutsis was herders, right? Despite some cultural differences, they lived in a peaceful together under the Tutsi monarchy. During the Berlin Conference, this area of Africa was claimed by the Germans. And I'm going to go further into the example of divide and conquer just in a second with the Hutus and the Tutsis. There was many other incidents, but I'm talking about this one because this made headlines everywhere with this incident that took place, right? But, and I'm going to come back. I don't know if I'm going to come back late tonight, which it probably won't be late tonight. It'll probably be sometime tomorrow morning because I want to read an article and talk about the coverage of this incident that took place and give it some context, which I'm going to give it some context today, but give you further context because these Europeans don't give it context. They make this incident that I'm going to talk about so horrendous and see what they're doing, but they don't give you the context and give you the cause and effect, why certain things happen, right? So, let me read that again. So we see in history how the Europeans used the divide and conquer with Rwanda with the Tutsis and the Hutus. Hutus were farmers and the Tutsis were herders, right? And we know if you own livestock, livestock was more wealthy if you had livestock. Livestock, you know what I'm saying, was more valuable, you know what I'm saying, at that time than the crops were. So this, and I'm telling you that for a reason too. Because despite some cultural differences, they lived peaceful together, the Tutsi monarchy. Difference in the Berlin Conference, this area in Africa was claimed by the Germans. So we know Rwanda was claimed by the Germans. So the Germans took place in the meeting in 1884 in Berlin, Germany, with this conference, the Berlin Conference, right? To divide up or carve up Africa, right? The Germany realized that it wasn't going to be able to dominate without local help. So they struck a deal with the king of Rwanda, who was a member of the Tutsi tribe. Now, a while ago, I told you that the Hutus were farmers and the Tutsis were herders of livestock, right? We know herders deal with livestock, correct? So the king at that time of Rwanda were one who was of the tribe of the Tutsi. He was the king. But the Hutus and the Tutsis lived amongst each other in peace, right? But again, at that particular time, the Tutsis was herders. So again, even if you study African traditions, you know what I'm saying, and the customs, you will see that livestock, or if you had livestock, that means that you was wealthy. And even when you got married, you had to pay a dowry. And that dowry will be in most of the time in livestock. You will have other things that they will have to pay in a dowry to marry, but most of it will be in the form of livestock. So if you had livestock, abundance of livestock, we were considered to be, somewhat well off, right? So this deal granted special treatments to the Tutsi tribe. The deal granted special treatment to the Tutsi tribe, but the Hutus people was treated like a second-class citizen. I'm going to read that again. The Germans realized that it wasn't going to be able to dominate without local help. So they struck a deal with the king of Rwanda. So that king, like I said, that king at that particular time was of the Tutsi tribe. And this deal granted special treatment to the Tutsi tribe. The deal granted special treatment to the Tutsi tribe, but the Hutus people was treated like second-class citizens. Many Hutus was mistreated, exploited, humiliated by the German government. Now, this was the German government that was doing it. So they set a deal, they struck a deal with the Tutsi king, because he was the king and the Tutsi king was, and if it was vice versa, if it was the Hutu who was the king at that particular time, they would have struck a deal with the king of Rwanda, which would have been of the Hutu tribe, and then it would have been flipped. Then the Tutsi was been considered as the second class, right? And the government the German government would have been treating the Tutsis bad, but they was treating the Hutus bad, right? Exploiting them, humiliating them. They was, the Hutus lived like slaves, like existed to their own land. Unlike the Hutus, the Germans treated the Tutsis with more respect and granted them higher in social status in colonial societies. But this is nothing new. We see this throughout Africa, where they'll come in and they'll set up certain things, and then they will, certain people will get certain privileges. They will create them with certain statuses and hierarchies and wealth to do certain things to control the masses of the people, or whatever the case may be. After, hold on, let me see. Many of the Hutus, so the Hutus people were treated like second-class citizens. Many Hutus was mistreated, exploited, humiliated by the German government. The Hutus lived like slave-like existence in their own land. Unlike the Hutus, the Germans treated the Tutsis with more respect and granted them higher in social status in colonial society. After the Germans were defeated in the world and doing this divide and conquer, going back before I get in this, the Hutus started setting up resentment for the Tutsis. Prior to the Germans and the carving up of Africa and the Germans coming in, right? And then needing the help from the locals and strike the deal with the king of Rwanda and gave them the Tutsi special treatment, because at that time, the king of Rwanda was the Tutsi. So now they're setting up this divide and conquer thing, okay? And now we're starting to set up resentment. You know what I'm saying? You know, the Hutus are now starting to hate and resent all of the privileges that the Tutsis was getting, right? All of the things that the Tutsis was getting, the respect and the honor and certain, you know, certain statuses and, you know, even certain wealth, and the Hutus were being treated bad. And some I probably would feel the same way. Hey, prior to these foreigners coming in, we was good. We was brothers and we were sisters. We lived amongst each other in peace. Now they come in and now you won't even speak up. They throwing you a little bone, and now you taking those privileges that they're giving you, and you forgetting about us, or you not fighting with us, and you see how they are humiliating us. You see how they are exploiting us. You see how they are treating us like second-class citizens in our own homeland, and we was here many, many years before these foreigners got in here, right? So now they're setting up resentment for the Tutsis. So now a rift is starting to take place between the Tutsis and the Hutus, right? And after the Germans was defeated in the World War II, Belgium took control of Rwanda, and due to the success of the Germany policies, the Belgium continued to divide and conquer in Rwanda with the Hutus and the Tutsis. The Belgium even made people get special ID cards to be identified with which tribe they are associated with. By 1962, the Belgium granted Rwanda independence. But before, you can see down here, man, the Belgium, everybody had special ID cards to distinguish one from being Hutu or one being a Tutsi. The first democratic election took place in 1962. The majority of the Hutu population elected a Hutu-like government for the new country. Almost immediately, new governments began persecuting the Tutsis as revenge for the collaboration with the Germany and the Belgium. Fearing their life, many Tutsis fled the country. This further established the Hutus as the majority of Rwanda society. So now, the Tutsis are now starting to flee. So again, remember, 1884, the carving up of Africa. Germany took over certain parts, created these boundaries. They was in Rwanda. They needed help from the locals, right? So they struck a deal with the Tutsi, with the king at that particular time, which was the Tutsis. And in that geographical location, there was the Tutsi tribe and there was the Hutu tribe, who lived in peace. So when the Germans got there, they struck a deal, and then they set up something called divide and conquer. They set these policies up in place where it benefited the Tutsis, and then it didn't benefit the Hutus. So it started to set up hatred and resentments for the Hutus, for the Tutsi, because of the privileges that they had and the deal that the king struck with the Germans. And the Tutsi did not fight in regards for the Hutus. So a rift between the Hutus and the Tutsi existed for a long period of time. So now, after the Germans and after they lost the war and Belgium took over that place, Belgium said, the policies that the Germans had of divide and conquer was working in our benefit, in our favor. So we're going to keep that up, because now we have them fighting amongst themselves, so they can't even see what's really going on and what we are doing, right? So after the Belgium, granted them their independence in 1962, another election, and now the Hutus are in power, right? They are in power. And they was already riffing, and the hatred and the envy was already brewing. They was already having disputes, fighting a little bit amongst one another. So when the Hutus came in power, man, they immediately started persecuting the Tutsis. Now we're going to give y'all a dose of y'all own medicine. So now the Tutsis began to flee from Rwanda. Fearing for their life, many Tutsis fled the country. This further established the Hutu as the majority of Rwanda. So at one point before the Germans got there, it was the Tutsis and the Hutus. And then when the Tutsis began to flee, fearing for their life, the majority of the population, or the population, was the Hutu people, or the Hutu tribe. By late 1980, many of the Tutsis decided to return to homeland as the Tutsis began to migrate back into Rwanda. All hatred begins to flare upon once again. Many Hutus feel like Tutsis was unpatriotic traders returned to steal the land from the Hutus. Conflicts between the two began to break out all over the country. So now the Tutsis, after periods went on, years went on, the Tutsis wanted to return back to their homeland. So in returning back to their homeland, the Hutus still had hatred for these Tutsis because of what the Germans did when they set up these policies of divide and conquer to get them to fight amongst one another. So when many Hutus felt that the Tutsis was unpatriotic traitors returning to steal the land from the Hutus, conflicts between the two began to break out all over the country. Many of the major problems we see in Africa today stems to the European powers that didn't take tribal and cultural differences into considerations when created the current map of the Africa in the Berlin Conference. Many Europeans led Africa in the 20th century. Most of their colonies were not fully prepared for the challenges of independence. I'm going to go back and read that in a minute. But let me go back to when they returned. Now, when they return, and that's why I'm going to do a separate show. I don't know when. Like I said, I may plan to do it later on tonight, but I doubt it very seriously. Probably come back in the morning, because I want to read an article and read the coverage of what was started to happen in 1994 and how they didn't give the whole context of why these two groups of people was fighting, and how the news outlet and the media, and even when we talk, because we're going to talk about Bill Clinton when he was the president, and his involvement, and how they talk down about these two groups of people, but don't understand or didn't give the context of what happened and how this has been occurring in Africa, not just with the Tutsis, but this made coverage because something happened, something major happened that got other people or other powers involved. And behind this, and I'll say this, behind this, something happened. When the Tutsis came back, the Hutus began to still have that hatred, and feuds broke out in the country. They was fighting amongst each other. But something happened in 1994 where the Hutu, now the president was the Hutu tribe, the plane was shot down. The plane was shot down and he died in the crash, right? So No one knew who shot the plane down, but the Hutus automatically said that it was the Tutsis. So that event set off a major event of an Holocaust. And the Hutus militias began to form, and they began to go into all of the Tutsis community and begin killing, burning, you know what I'm saying? And within 100 days, 1,000,000 Tutsis were dead. Within 100 days, 1,000,000 Tutsis was dead. But the media and the outlets are portraying it like it was premeditated and it was planned. These Tutsis planned, the Hutus planned to genocide another group of people. But they don't give you the context. I'm going to give you the context because I'm going to expound and go a little bit deeper when we read this article, which may be tomorrow sometime. But just wanted to give you an example of divide and conquer, some of the issues that took place when these foreigners, these powers came in, and even the United States, because we always talk about these other European powers, but we never mention the United States, and the United States had its hands in the conference as well. And a lot of these things that took place, colonialism, imperialism, the carving up of Africa, setting these boundaries up, pushing peoples out of the certain areas that they lived in, the dividing and the conquering, the invasions, the people migrating into the bush because of these foreigners in these areas. You know what I'm saying? All these things that happen due to these events. So the conclusion, many of the major problems we see in Africa today stems back to European powers. So in conclusion, the Berlin Conference was significant due to the major role it had in the colonization in Africa. It gave European nations the opportunity to take control of Africa and disregard the natives that were there before them and just do what they wanted to do. This caused many problems for the native Africans that were there long before the Berlin Conference decided their fate. This was not fair for Africa. This was not fair for Africa and the people that basically got their culture and the way of life forced away from them by new education and religion being forced upon them. The Berlin Conference involved 13 European powers: the United States, and the United States. We already know Germany. We already know France. We already know the Portuguese. We know the Dutch. We know the Germans. You know, these other European powers that we always talk about, but we always leave out the United States. The United States had a part in this conference as well. They had a part in slicing and dicing and carving up Africa and causing some of these many, many problems that still in Africa today from these events that happened, right? Africa was split up, which resulted in the British and French gaining the majority of the land. And somebody got something to say?
I just jumped in, Kofi. This is Ted. My bad.
Oh, okay. This was not fair for the Africans and the people that basically got their culture and the way of life, way of living forced away from them by new education and religion being forced upon them. The Berlin Conference involved 13 European powers and the United States. Africa was split up, which resulted in British and French gaining the majority of the land and the rest being controlled by the nation involved. The conference abolished the African land was used for the immense amounts of natural resources, which we explained. I talk about the Industrial Revolution taking off and why the so-called European powers wanted to stake claim in Africa, and they came up with an agreement in Germany to slice and dice and carve up Africa for the benefits of their Industrial Revolution that was taking off for their own gain. Natural resources that were found in Africa, including gold, diamond, and rubber. The conference had positive and negative impacts on Africa people, but sadly, most of them were negative. The Berlin Conference was one of the biggest events to happen in the world at this time. This is still a very important piece of the world history to this day that shapes the continent of Africa forever. So I wanted, to break down some of those things, just to talk about, because a lot of our people don't understand why there are civil wars in Africa. Why they are fighting amongst each other. Why some of these countries that has all these natural resources, why they are not rich and these people are poor as hell, and they got natural resources up under them. So what happened? Why are these people poor? Why are there poverty in Africa when Africa sustains the whole damn world? So I just wanted to break down some of the events that happened, the Berlin Conference in particular, and the effect of the Berlin Conference and the effect of imperialism and colonialism that is still affecting or still hunting the continent of Africa today, with the many issues that we see in our homeland today. And again, like I said, this presentation was inspired by Chapter 8 and Chancellor Williams' Destruction of Black Civilization, which we will talk about and break down today at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when we deal with Chapter 8. So, and now some of the context when we start talking and discussing Chapter 8, some of y'all will kind of understand what was going on, especially when we read just the first page alone. You know what I'm saying? Because the presentation was based off just the first page alone, but other things that happened or transpired within that chapter that we're going to expound and talk about this evening. So again, these are my sources right here. I leave them paused here because we always want you leave the sources so you can go look up these things for yourself. You know what I'm saying? And because I'm not the authority on this information, and these are some of the sources that I use to I put together to create this PowerPoint here. Also, spiritual comeback. Before I get out of here again, appreciate, and I'll go back and look and see if anybody got any questions. If y'all know anybody got any questions, or any of your brothers got anything, let's just say any of your brothers on the panel got anything.
Good job, Kofi. I'm driving. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to say good job. And while you was building, I've been driving and grocery shopping. And I wanted to talk about the fact that while that's taking place, you got the United States dividing up the land here. But the United States tried to get their hands on Africa as well. If people read John L. Waller, I want to say 1890, the United States made him consul to Madagascar, and the Queen of Madagascar gave him, I want to say, up to 15 to 20,000 acres of land to be settled by African Americans. But the French interrupted that, and that was due to rubber, one of the last resources you brought up. But that brother's name was John L. Waller, and they were fighting to get the all-black state at the same time, him and Edward P. McCabe.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Anybody else got anything, man?
Yeah, man, good show. Good show. You laid it all out, really, man. Ready to get to the book club to see how you tie that in, though. But yeah, man, good show.
Yeah. I know you came in late, Satep, man, but peace to you, bro.
Yeah, peace, Kofi. Like Sutek said, I'm gonna have to. How long was? Okay, an hour. Yeah, I might have to run back and watch this one because I just dropped the kids off. But I want to see how you tie this in too. It said, Did carving up Africa create many problems?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, because I mean, this was inspired by chapter 18 chapter 8. In the book, especially the
Mhm.
first page. So, I just wanted to kind of do something and kind of give a little bit more context and break it down so people can kind of follow us when we start building and talking about other stuff in chapter 8.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, go excuse my my era, but available now. Spiritual comeback for people that may not know. This is our third text, our third volume, I would say, not third text, but third volume. We have several publications out, but Spiritual Comeback, which was released a couple of weeks ago, which is our best work today, in my opinion. It's just my opinion, but and I'm saying that because you can see the growth, you can see the evolution, and again, we are still babies, baby authors, but we're continuing to work. We're going to continue to grow, continue to grow, and we're not saying we're master authors. So don't get that twisted. We are not master authors. We are still babies. We are still learning, but we are still producing it in the same manner. We're going to continue to put out publications. We may slow down a little bit. We may continue the same speed that we got. We don't know going into 2021, but this is available on KofiPiesieTV.com. Go get your copy now on www.KofiPiesieTV.com. Also, like I said, I mentioned we have several publications. So if you don't have Spirits of the Mossi, Historical Survey in the Minds of African Warrior Scholars, Volume 1, written by Kofi Piesie Research Team, go to KofiPiesieTV.com and get your copy. If you don't have From Spirits to Pen, the Historical Survey in the Minds of African Warrior Scholars, Volume 2, go get your copy. We also producing stuff for the children as well. So if you want something for your children, go to Kofi Piesie TV and get One Night Before Bed, written by Eni Sean Calfani, who is a member of Kofi Piesie Research Team and Mossi Warrior Clan, and my children book, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland, and African Education in Music and Instrument for the children. Please go get that. It is on KofiPiesieTV.com. It will definitely make a good Christmas gift for those that celebrate Christmas, and it'll definitely make a good gift for Kwanzaa for your children. Kwanzaa. If you're talking, and I may come back and deal with Kwanzaa here pretty soon. Usually every year I talk about Kwanzaa and I relate them to certain things that dealing with African tradition, because we have certain things that people say Kwanzaa was made, and which it was, but I have another stance, with that. But where did the ideology come from? Where did what's the name get that ideal from? Did he have some type of blueprint, a foundation, and he took it and upgraded and updated it? So I may come back and deal with that, before the end of the year out. But as I learn, we all learn, which is a phrase that we use over here on Kofi Piesie Research Team and Mossi Warrior Clan. We use that and we stand by that. So you can also go get As I Learn, We All Learn. Sharing with others help deepen your own knowledge. It's on KofiPiesieTV.com. A website From Cocaine to Consciousness. That's written by Sean. You can go get that as well. That's on KofiPiesieTV.com. And our latest text, Spiritual Comeback, Historical Survey in the Minds of African Warrior Scholars, Volume 3, written by Kofi Piesie Research Team, dedicated forward by our sister LaDosha Wright and our brother Kevin Chill Hurd, and also the prologue written by our brother Madhu Sahu, who lives in Bajul Gamia. So we also have our continental brother African, who has something in the book as well as in my book, As I Learn, We All Learn. I have two brothers from the continent in that book. I have Omar Champion, who wrote the poetry in the back of the book that dealing with learning, and he's a master poet, powerful poet. And I have not Omar, but I have Alu Sambu, who also wrote the prologue in As I Learn, We All Learn. So we are working, with our brothers and sisters on the continent, as well as Volume 1 and Volume 2 is on the continent of Africa. It is on the grounds. It is in the library, the Rice Library, named after LaDosha Wright. And we'll be working on another written essay for volume 2 next year. We're going to start discussing that in January. So y'all start seeing the footages and the coverage of what's going to be happening and what's going to take place. We're going to take it nationally. Now, we did volume 1. We did a written essay on that one. We did that in Gambia, in Banjo, Gambia. So we may try to expand it a little bit further, you know what I'm saying, with the writing essay. So both of those books are on the grounds in Africa. So all these books make, like I said, great, gifts for the holidays, you know what I'm saying, especially Kwanzaa, you know what I'm saying, Zawata. So go, get those publications. Also, go check out our online store, familyconnectedapparel.com. Mboka-Family-Connected-Apparel.com. Again, Mboka means family. You hear us talk about Mboka. We, call each other Mboka. Mboka is a Wolof word that means family. Everybody should know that by now. So we always refer to each other as family. So we created a online apparel store that has all the family brands. The Kofi Piesie Research brand, the Mossi Warrior Clan brand, the Mboka brand, which is a partnership between Kofi Piesie Research Team and the Gay and Journal Skills Academy that created the Mboka brand, or the Dofting brand, as well as the Niger Valley Civilization brand. So those are all connected families. So we have our own brand. And again, it's a clothing line. It's just not a t-shirt line. We have all types of things on there. Go check it out. Hats, skull caps, hoodies, long sleeves, t-shirts, v-necks, socks, pantses, polo shirts. We just got all kind of stuff like on there. So go check it out. We also have our other branding that we do, Author's Perspective shirts. We have a show called Author's Perspective. You can get those shirts on there. We have a show called Warrior Scholars. We have shirts available on there. We have the Thomas Sakara shirt on there. I'm gonna definitely do another one. I Am Thomas Sakara shirts will be available on there as well. Again, y'all gonna keep me hearing me talking about Thomas Sakara. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, go support. And get something. These are great Christmas gifts. And great Kwanzaa gifts. And again, the apparel that's on there it's a representation of you. You know what I'm saying? It represents you. We go out and wear these other brands, Dolce and Gabbana, Gucci, and Polo, and Tommy Hilfiger, and all these other brands that we love to boast about. That it makes us feel good to have this stuff on. We go spend all our check that we work hard for and go spend $300-400, on these brand clothing that half of these Europeans don't even want us in, but we go get it out because it's some kind of status, and that don't even represent that. Those clothings or those brands don't even represent us. So go get something, man, that represents you. And I'll be doing a show next week, and I'll be talking about these brands and breaking it down, these logos, and what I mean by they represent you. You know what I'm saying? But also just talking about it's gonna be hands down undisputable next show, which is gonna be a big show, damn near closing out the year, talking about how Kofi Piesie Research Team and Mossi Warrior Clan actually did something historical during the pandemic. You know what I'm saying? And you can be able to put us up there with a Madam C.J. Walker, put us up there with a Marcus Garvey, and a few other people, because certain things happened that they did during a pandemic. They did stuff that was amazing that went down in history during a pandemic, and we did the same thing. People, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna lay out all of the evidence, all of the information why we did something historic in the pandemic in 2020, and it's undisputable. And I'm just not talking out my ass. I'm laying out all the information that we did, all the things that we accomplished in the pandemic, and some of the things that we accomplished that some people are trying to do now that has not did yet. and we are underrated. We underrated. But it's cool. I like to be underrated because some, our names is not mentioned with others, and other people don't reach out as much as us as they reach out to the other families. But that's cool. You know what I'm saying? That's cool. But we did some stuff this year that people gonna be talking about, that a lot of the brothers, I keep saying that, we've been working so hard, we hadn't just sat down to enjoy the fruits of our labors, or even see that, man, we gonna be wrote about. It may not be wrote about now, it may not be wrote about in the next 2 or 3 years, but it will be written about some of the things that we did in a damn pandemic, that we accomplished in a damn pandemic. But I'm gonna leave it at that, man. So y'all be tuned in to that show. You know what I'm saying? As I lay out all of the the evidence down, why we gonna go down in history in 2020 as some of those other people that I mentioned, that they did great things that they did in a pandemic in their time. And it wasn't written about at that time, but it was written later on in history about some of the things that they did, or people may not even realize some of the accomplishments and some of the things that some of these people that I'm going to talk about did in a damn pandemic. But anyway, man, like I said, go support us, man. Go support us, man. Go to FamilyConnectApparel.com, or just type in your Google search Mboka, MBOKA /Family Connect, and it'll pop up. Click the link and it'll take you. Go to the catalog, click the catalog, and we have 10 pages. Go to Kofi Piesie, www.KofiPiesieTV.com. Click the learning market, and you will get several of those books. Go and support. We're gonna continue to work hard. And do what we got to do for our people. We're going to continue to be Thomas Sakara. We're going to continue to be Thomas Sakara. So if you hadn't seen that video, please go check out. Am I still sharing, y'all? I hope I ain't still sharing the show.
Yeah, your screen's still sharing.
Hold on, man. This darn thing here. Stop sharing. But yeah, like I said, man, we're going to continue to be Thomas Sakara, man. We're going to continue to do what we got to do for our people, man. And hopefully one day we'll be able to get more boots on the ground and be able to do things on the ground as well, even though we're doing a little things on the ground now. And I'll talk about some of the things that we're doing on the ground now during this pandemic. But man, that's it, man. That's all I have. Anybody got anything else, man? If not, man, I'm gonna end the stream. Appreciate everybody that tuned in, man, for this presentation. And Brother Mathis, appreciate that I popped and put your thing right up off the rip, man. And I agree with everything that you said, Brother Mathis. Anyone of y'all got anything else?
Yeah, man. If you ain't got volume 3 yet, get volume 3. If you obviously, if you ain't got volume 1 and 2, get those. Like Kofi said, man, we got the children's books too. It's the holidays, whatever you celebrate, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Cop something, man. Cop something. Show some love and support, because we take a lot of time out of our lives to put this stuff together for y'all, and we ain't like a lot of other people that's just out with our hands out, and we not giving you something substantial. You know what I'm saying? We don't have our hands out. If y'all want to donate to us in the form, make it in the form of purchasing some merch, purchasing some books, because we don't want y'all money for nothing. We want to give y'all something in return for that. So you know what I'm saying? Make sure y'all support, man. Make sure y'all support. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Subscribe to Mossi Warrior Clan. Niger Valley Civilization. Me and Satep got a podcast, Coffee and Cookies. Make sure you subscribe to that. COUGHEE and Cookies. Make sure you subscribe to that, man. We go live every Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern, and we chop it up. So, yeah, man, make sure y'all support everything we got going on, because we take a lot of time out of our lives and away from our families to do this stuff that we do for y'all. And we don't ask for nothing but y'all love and support, you know. But peace, man. I appreciate y'all for coming through. Make sure y'all come back. We coming back at 8 o'clock for the book club.
Hey, Sutek.
What's up?
What's the definition of Matamoros?
The more killer.
All right.
All right. Oh man. Oh man. Anybody else? All right. Well, I guess ain't nobody got nothing else, man. Again, like I said, we'll be back for chapter 8. And again, chapter 8, this presentation was inspired by chapter 8, especially the first page. But you know, there's gonna be a good deal tonight on chapter 8. So tune in at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you hadn't subscribed to Kofi Piesie TV, please go and subscribe now. Hit that notification bell so when we go live, you will know you won't be late to the party. I said in the beginning, Shimim Hotep. ETM Hotep, which means bring forth peace. So now I'm gonna say Shimim Hotep. Shimim Hotep means to depart in peace. So we'll see y'all later on. And again, like I say, be paying attention Monday. I'm gonna come back and we're gonna read this article and these people's reports on the Hutus and the Tutsis, and I'm gonna give you some more context and show you how they painting these people to be bad people, not telling you exactly, giving you all the context of what happened with this divide and conquer policy that the Germans actually set in place. But again, like I said, peace and Black African power, and we'll see y'all later on tonight. We out of here. And if I get to the button.